Hey, hey, and we're back with a live studio audience playing some Kerbal Space Program. Ooh, just sat down, had some nice lunch as I'm chilling out here, house sitting for a friend. Figure I'd make some Kerbal Space videos. We're still going to be working on getting to the Mun, I think, and actually getting some tourist and swivel engine testing taken care of. So before we reach our Mun destination, let's go ahead and get some of these tourists that suborbital flight that they're wanting. Now, I had one that I already had that was crash test dummy. This totally worked, I think, after some modifications. But now that we have strut connectors, this will be significantly easier. Actually, before I do that, do we have the money? Do we have it? We do have the money. Vehicle assembly bay. Oh my gosh, give me the upgrade that I have been looking for. It did. It was beautiful. I appreciate it. Kerbals can perform EVAs with 75,000. Alright, we're doing it. Bam. Okay, so a lot of things just happened. I upgraded some of my buildings. I know it didn't look like much from the outside, but they definitely did upgrade. So, yeah, as you can see, this is definitely a lot different than what it was before. So, alright. Now I don't have that limitation. Now it's 225 parts and not 30. So all I'm going to really add to this one is these wonderful little struts. Yep. I think honestly that might be exactly what it needed. Now, do I have any SAS control that's not? I do not. Okay. We're still going to be hand flying this. So that'll be fun. But it should be significantly more stable. So let's see how this turns out. Oh, that's wrong. It actually has to be filled with the people that do the thing. Tourist, 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 tourist. We got Dauber, Jodis, Albus, and Rodald. They're all awesome. Oh! No, he's just a tourist. I guess he would need some kind of outfit to go into space. Some kind of suit to make sure that their body doesn't get crushed by the imminent pressure. Water. Delicious. Alright, guys. Yeah, I'm aware. Let's go. Oh boy. I don't know if it's going to go suborbital if it keeps going like that. That's so dangerous. Oh, wow. Come on, gain control of yourself. And this is what happens when you don't end up having the right control on it. The issue is controlling its orientation. Because if you don't have which way is up or which way is down because of the spin, it's going to cause you to not be able to control anything. If I can get it to stop its orbital rotation. Come on. Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think I'm going to be able to get this one on this one. Trying to fight it. Oh, it's making me dizzy looking at that rotational ball. I bet these guys would be just puking at this point. Absolutely losing their minds. Alright. I did much better last time. Significantly so. If I had a swivel engine, that would be significantly easier. Come on. Control it. Uh-huh. Nope. It's fighting against it. There we are. Alright. And come on, get up there. There we go. That's suborbital. Alright. Man, this thing is really weird. So, the yellow little square, the yellow little thing here, that's technically your direction. That's aiming towards your apoapsis, the 76,000 kilometers. That's where that's heading. Now, it'll swap to one that has like little X's in it, and that's like the opposite of it. Now you're going to notice that on the little nav ball, there's north, and then there's what would be, I guess this is, I forget exactly what that is. I think that's like diagonal to your direction or something along those lines. It's like to the left and to the right, essentially, of where you're going. And then that's the rear end of it, so I could technically fire my engines in this direction here, and it would like force me to return back to the space, which is kind of the goal. But let me see if we can actually show you that. So this will reduce or increase as I do it because it's reducing the distance that it is away. I do want a liquid flight or a liquid landing zone. It spun me around because of the force of the engine, so I have to turn my nav ball back around, make sure I'm facing what would be the negative direction, fire it in small bursts. You can see the throttle is doing what it's doing, my speed's dropping. There we go, and I've pushed myself into landing in the water. Now, with a craft this big, and it's kind of bulky because this is a lot of weight and mass versus kind of just the crew cabins here that actually have all the control. So I've been literally like playing teeter-totter with this thing the whole time. That's why it's such a difficult craft to be able to actually manipulate and fly. I don't believe that I'll have issues with re-entry at these speeds. At least none that would be catastrophic by any means. I'm going to double up my speed here. Maybe a bad idea, but I'm really wanting to get done with this mission. It's really just for the money after upgrading the places. Oh boy. Yep. There's no way I can stop that. That's the sad part. They're face on into that, looking straight up into what would be the flames, painting the back wall red. Some scary stuff, guys. Alright. Aerodynamic forces are just stopping us at this point. We need those to turn over. That's fine. We didn't need any of that stuff. These are our money makers right here. The VIP got his own little pod. The other three are all dropping in a simultaneous unit. Nice. People messaging me with stuff. Weaponized carrots? What? People send me some strange shit sometimes. Tracking stations. What? What is that? Oh, these are different missions that I could actually pick up. I'm gonna go ahead and recover you. That way I've completed the Kerbals mission. I was at like 222,000. No, wasn't even at that. Well, we got some extra money. That's always nice. Do we have any new missions? They want to be orbited now. Yeah, any of the tourists that we have now that we've completed, it'll be like, hey, I want to do that. I'm like, no, you don't have the skills, bruh. And I don't have the resources yet to do that. So, speaking of skills and resources and getting science and all that fun stuff, we are going to make the Mun spot. This is just going to be a flyby craft to be able to take us in and around what would be the Mun or the moon. Now there's two different types of moons in Kerbal Space Program, thankfully. There's Memnus and then there's the Mun. The Mun is I think, more closely related to what Earth and the Moon would be, I do believe. But it's still quite a crazy distance, to be 100% honest with you. Alright. I want this to have some extra parachutes, mainly just because I am going to be wanting to have like a science experiment like return on it. I'm thinking something either like this or actually having like a detachable Science Junior available for it. Seeing that we're just going to be going in probably to low Mun orbit, I don't want to spend too much on it because I can still get some of that, you know, research and money for when we're making those trips. Generally, it's nice to have 2 of every like test in those instances, primarily to make sure that you can get it for like 1 in deep space, 1 near the moon, you know, kind of having those. There's a storage unit that I have. I'm going to open this up. Now this is going to be a critical part of this actual build because it's just attaching a bunch of units and pieces together where they need to go and making sure that they can be safe. Now technically I could do something similar like this and make sure that all those parts are inside of the unit, keeping protected. Usually you want to have that kind of situation, that way it's less drag and less mass on the outside of the craft. But with it being just a atmospheric run by, it's not going to be too crazy. I do want to have 1 relay on it, that way the communication transmission can be like a responsiveness back and forth. Before I go to the Mun though, I probably need to actually throw some like smaller end satellites into the like surrounding bits of the solar system. But I don't have, I think, any solar panel generation yet. No, it'd show up here if I did. Okay. Now, suddenly this has become one of the most important pieces, so I'm actually going to trade that out with the Science Junior, let it take the brunt of any catastrophic damage or other circumstances therein. I do want to actually use it to attach some legs as well, now that we have those. And I know they look a little funky, but boy howdy can they save you when you're landing a heavy craft with maybe not as many parachutes as you think you're going to need. Because just this vehicle right now is sitting at almost 2 tons. So 4,000 pounds. So about the size of a, like, you know, an SUV or something along those lines. Now with the ablative shielding, which is going to protect us from when we slam into the atmosphere at like Mach 7. Alright, 2.1 pounds, this is the Mun spot. I think that is going to be pretty much fleshed out as much as I can for now. So we'll go ahead and start kind of adding in the staging. Let me see. Alright. We'll go ahead and save it for that. So this is what you want returning back to Kerbin. So outside of this, you're going to need some kind of, let's say, pretty much control. I do have the wider, smaller fuel tanks. We'll do this. We'll do, is that the same size? 90, 45, 180, 2, 3. It's like 425. Doing it this way versus 500. Alright, so we have a new engine set. We have a few of them here. This is the Terrier liquid engine. This is the first kind of engine that you can actually change like the different variants on it, so you get to see like some of the wiring and how the trusses would be and how it would be protected if it were in flight. I'm going to go ahead and go with the full protection on this one. It's just a cosmetic thing. It doesn't actually change anything about the way that the game is played. So that is going to be our last stage engine. Now, we don't have like fuel rails to transfer fuel from one area to the next yet, but what we're going to go ahead and do is start working on... This is the stage that will go around the moon and come back. If you look here, it says it only has 253 meters a second. Well, that's calculating it off of its environment being on sea level with Kerbin. If we put it into a vacuum, that changes to 1400 meters a second with a thrust to weight ratio of roughly about 1.4. So that little engine can push all this liquid oxygen and hydrogen as well as the 2-ton vehicle, roughly about twice its actual mass per weight. So yeah, it's sitting at about 5 tons right there with just everything on it. And let me see. These are a little bit thicker and I just got them, but they end up working out to save height when you need it. This stage will probably be getting us around the planet. Now, I don't use the thud engines very often because they're not necessarily the most like energy efficient. So if you look at the engine stats there in the green, and at the bottom it says engine ISP, that's its like performance essentially. At sea level or altitude, it's running 275, vacuum's 305. You can see like the different variances. That little one I have up there is 340. So they do seem a little bit better, but the thrust to weight ratio on one of those, I mean, that's 1600 versus what could be, it's 240. It's the same, yeah. Alright. We're going to put a Reliant engine on this. I think that should be perfectly fine. That's 2400 meters a second at 1.6 thrust to weight ratio. We're increasing our mass by roughly about 10 tons with just this section here. So we really need to make sure that when we're pushing into those last stages that we are already in orbit. We want this to be like a little bit of this engine to round us off in the orbit, and then the rest of this to push us in and around the moon. So that's going to be kind of the expectation, or what we're hoping it will achieve. Now we need first stage. So generally first stage you need about 3,000 or so what's known as delta V, which is this little symbol or meters a second that I've been kind of talking to you about. I'm always leery to put a bunch of liquid rocket engines on these because, one, they're expensive, and two, they weigh a lot, while solid rocket boosters are somewhat cheap but end up having a little bit of precaution or circumstance because they are, well, solid. You add mass, you add a bunch of stuff that moves and deteriorates over time, and that can sometimes cause failure, or I think the actual term that they used to use is called caulking or chalking, because it would build up on the side of the skin of the rocket thruster. Let me see here. This is the first time I'm using the hammer solid socket blah 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 words, guys, words. This is the first time I'm using the hammer solid rocket thrusters. They are pretty darn powerful little guys for pushing out stuff. Let me see here. So I set these at roughly about, I'm gonna do 69% there for the thumper engines that are going to be on the outskirts. These little solid hammers are going to run for 41 seconds. I need that to run for 61. So we're changing this center solid one, which is going to carry these others, but it's needing a little bit of a boost from our little friends down here. So I'm trying to get it, or maybe we get about a 30-second burn or so on these hammers. Okay. Okay, so about 79% thrust limitation on each one of those hammers is going to give me a 30-second burn. That's going to give me, just with the hammers alone, I could start picking this craft up by itself. But, of course, we want it to start moving at a pretty good pace as it starts to rocket through the air. So we're going to make this center core be firing as well. Now, the center core is also going to be moving these guys, so I need it to run for roughly about 90 seconds. 91 seconds is what we'll want it to run at. I don't know why you're not calculating its burn time. It's definitely going to be included in that burn process. So essentially what's happening is it's saying that, hey, because these rocket boosters here, you know, going to be firing for that length of time, it's not wanting to calculate in the other one. So these guys are set to 69. This center one here, because it needs to run for a longer period of time. If I run you guys at 73, does that drop that down to like 58 seconds? It does. Okay. We're going to set the center one at 30. And just see how that turns out. So what I'm trying to do is these will fire, this center one will fire. They'll run for 30 seconds, including the center one, pushing us at, you know, roughly about 1.4 our speed. So not very fast by any means, but as soon as these hammers run out, these second stages here will kick in, and they're set to roughly about 73%. So they'll continue to push us at an increasing velocity up until the point where our second stage can kick in. But this is not enough to push us where we want to be. So what I'm going to do, seeing that I've made them kind of their individual pieces, is we're going to Kerbin the fuck out of it. And what that generally means is you just add more boosters. And with that, we have definitely increased our mass. We're sitting at almost 100 tons, but there are 6 of those finely crafted rockets ready to throw us into space, and we'll see how that turns out. Because that just got us a little bit over 2,200 or so. And it looks like... Okay, so it looks like that center core that I've been talking to you about, looks like it will continue to run for like 83 seconds. Is that what they're trying to say? 39 seconds. Another 20. 12. 9. 5. Okay. 4-second burn with just that center piece after all of these have dropped off. That's putting us at roughly about 2600. So that last stage, yeah, this looks pretty good to get us in and around the mun. So I know I just kind of blathered on there for a bit. Doing the calculations of the side numbers here, adding in what is expected of us to kind of get around the planet and then go from there. Let's actually... That's so off kilter. That should do it. Alright, ladies and gents, we are go for launch. Who's driving? Valentina, you'd like to play dangerous games? Let's go ahead and get you to play some dangerous games. She's gonna wear the SpaceX official cool ass suit because she's a future leader. Alrighty. Munshot is a go. This is a very expensive piece of equipment with a lot of power behind it. I kind of want to run those for like half a second before it actually lets go. So, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are kicking. As you can see, we're getting that slow, kind of steady ascent. Thrust weight ratio right now is sitting at 1.4 and climbing, so that means that we are just increasing our velocity as well as inertia heading in this northern direction. First stage is off, second stage kicks in, jumping us up a little bit in the G-forces. That way it's not breaking Valentina's neck to do so. She is right there. Almost 3. We're at almost 5,000 kilometers. Going to need to start turning this craft into this turn. Probably should have been doing that, honestly, well before we reach the speeds that we are. Yep, those are the hammer rocket thrusters slamming into the ground. If you heard that faint explosion. Oh boy. Okay, so this is where that miscalculation is coming into play. I increased that fuel thrust and it is, I mean, not detrimental by any means, but I don't think we're actually going to be orbiting with this flight. We will see though. Best thing I can do now is, while we are waiting, use the advantage to start slowly turning what is a really sharp line to a bit of a more of an angled curve. Luckily, this has a fairly good thrust-to-weight ratio with this engine. That is the mun that is technically our target for this. Alright. I feel confident we'll be able to orbit. Not 100% on the fact if we'll be able to swing ourselves around enough. to actually hit the moon. Come on. Keep pushing that line, buddy. I'm actually just going to keep accelerating into this turn. Okay. And now we are on the last portion of this. Now, normally, like I talked about, I could be able to do things called maneuver notes. Maneuver notes are essentially just a way of like planning out your route ahead of time. I don't have access to those. They require a much more advanced scientific circumstance. So what I'm going to do is kind of use some tribal knowledge. So I'm moving in this direction to increase the opposite side. Like, to increase one side of this, you have to be on the opposite side and push from there, and it'll push out that that circle. So the mun is traveling, I'm pretty sure it's traveling in this direction. This is like the speed trail, essentially, like where it's following, and this is the new horizon. So I want to meet up with this thing. Now, you need to make sure that your angle and stuff like that is set properly. So usually you would target it and make sure that your warble is a little fixed. I'm going to try to match that up here now as much as I can. Oh, I have to be looking at the craft to activate that engine. Might be a little bit too much. We'll worry about that once we actually get it kicked out. So I'm going to start accelerating into the direction that we are going. What that's going to do is, as you will see, is going to push that edge out. Now, to get to and around the mun, it's going to take roughly about, I think, 800 meters a second. So this little engine is just draining this fuel as it goes, trying to get us there. It's a pretty efficient engine, so it's kind of nice about that. You can get the specific impulse, what kind of flow it's using, what kind of throttle you have on it. You can get into the specifics, but I'm not here for that right now. I just want to toss ourselves out into space a bit. Now, there's a number of reasons why it is currently not looking like I'm going to hit that ring, and that is because of the angle of the disc, of which I'm my trajectory, and then also the distance that I still have to interact with these two lines here. So to do that, I'm going to guide over to these purple indicators, because that is like the up and down. Alright, let's get away from the planet, because we don't want to be affected by its influence, so we're just going to try to catch up to this thing. Distance really is perspective. Alright. Why am I... There we go. Perfect. I That is not a pretty line. No way. Stop. Stop what you're doing. I did not. I still got within its sphere of influence. It didn't tell me I was. I was so scared. Okay. So we are no longer being affected by the planet Kerbin. We are being affected by its moon. So we are technically influenced now by this celestial body. There's a number of things that I want to do now. I'm going to go ahead and open up the observatory essentially. We're going to observe the mystery goo here. Mystery goo high in space above the moon. The goo seems less dense here for some reason. So that's going to be that. Kind of maybe log some pressure, see what's kind of happening. Instrument reads 0 as if it were in a vacuum. Kind of duh. It's a barometric pressure. Temperature while in the influence of the moon. Sorry, had a little bit of a burp there. Measuring the temperature of space appears to be quite impossible, as there's no matter around it to be hot or cold. Alright, now, we got a bit of delta V here. And Valentina, well, you don't know it yet, but she's known for taking risks. So, she says, hey, I'm in the influence. I'm going to open up my radar dish here, extend out this transmission, and gather scientific data. So now that we are in its influence, she wants to make sure that she can stay here for a little bit. And the way she's going to do that is she is going to decrease her speed while under this influence. And now we're not moving very fast. As you can see, it doesn't take much. But she kicks on the engines. Everybody back home's like, hey, why are you using liquid fuel right now? She goes, oh, don't worry. I'm just doing some experiments. And decides that she is going to get into a better alignment with the mun. Now, this little craft is going to just stay in this position here in about a 2 million mile or meter radius. And now that she's in that position, she takes a look at her resources, sees that the electric charge is still 450. We have an active mission to gather scientific data from the moon. So she's going to review the crew report. Looks down at the cold gray surface. It looks to be really beat up by craters. They're not joking. She's going to send that back. The data is transmitted. The engine, it's uploaded as the signal does. And then that used roughly about 300 bits of electricity, so not too bad at all. Okay, let's close these out. We're going to go back to the Space Center because she's in an orbit that is safe and secure. So she's running her missions, technically back on the ground. Everybody would have still been doing stuff for like weeks, if not days at this point. Whoa, no way. Nuh-uh. If these are some of those solid hammer rocket thrusters that just landed after being like 3,000 feet in the air, I'm going to be impressed. Like, truly impressed. Oh, no, it's the Separatrons. We'll still recover those, though. How did those make it? They float down or something? Meh. This game always never ceases to amaze me. But yeah, now we got around the mun. Next mission, of course, with mission control, they're gonna be like, hey, you wanna put people on there, and I'm gonna be like, hey, I absolutely do. So we'll probably end up having something where we actually touch down and put some boots on the ground, as it were. That was really strange. It took me I did hit the tracking station instead of the Space Center. Well, I was trying to see these guys to recover them, but it took me right to her. All right, we are back up to $454,000. So that is really, really nice. Upgrading that's pretty tempting now. The tracking station being upgraded, I think, is definitely an improvement that cannot go undone. So we have one antenna dish right now. It's the only thing keeping us in communication with our friend from this distance. That's what you're seeing there, that green line is. We gotta upgrade that thing, because that's kind of science, and information is way important. I know we did the complex. It's already at level 2. Oof. I really do need that, though. Anybody want to give us some money over some things? Ferry 3 tourists to their destination, orbiting, fly by the mun. Yeah, they're definitely crazy now, but look at the increase in the cost of that. Yeah, they're like, hey, if you complete the mission, it's about $100,000 a piece. So they definitely know how to rake you in. Let's see here. Go on an orbital spacewalk near Kerbin? Absolutely. That's so tempting. It really is. I would do it, but I don't think I'm going to have the science to be able to actually incorporate 3 additional people into an effective transportation just yet. Seeing that there is no additional science to be had currently, let's go ahead and wait a few days here. Reason I'm going to wait a few days is there were missions in there that will expire. And then once they're expired, I can go ahead and see if we have other options. All right. Mission control. 4 tourists to the mun and back? Man, they're just increasing it. That's pretty good, though. Oh, by the mun. Yeah. I like it. They're like, hey, 2 of them want to go to the mun, but only 1 can afford to stay here in the thing. Do you think he could still tag along? And I'm like, dude, what? There it is. Bring a Munstone back with you. Big moves right there. That reputation should be way higher. And let me see. Oh, a flyby is only 20,000? Iconic, what are you doing? I'm so tempted to do it, but I know I couldn't get off the mun. The mun is such a more challenging escape, but it is good to have because it's a 10-year mission. Okay. Haven't failed anything yet, so let's go ahead and bring Valentina on back. She's been up there for a few days now, just chilling. Eating snacks, playing board games, wondering why mission report didn't fill her in that this was going to be such a long trip. Hello? Oh shit. What? Okay. So Valentina apparently just did not want to wait for me as a player to deorbit the moon. So I guess it threw me out of orbit. I mean, I was in a very loose yeah, I was in a very loose gravitational field around it. I had really just glanced it. So if that's the case, let's go out here to probably the furthest anybody's been from Kerbin as of yet. What would be considered deep space in between these two planetary bodies here. Bam. And 32.28 million meters is what we're at. That's like Kerbin. It's the Mun. You might be able to see Memnus in between them, but it's like right in that area. But what we're going to do is try to bring ourselves back in. So we're going to aim at the periapsis, or essentially the negative turn of where we're going. I do want to get temperature for being so far out here. Oh shit. I did not see that helmet there for a second, and bro, you gotta put that visor on. That is unprotected sunlight. It'll burn your retinas. Alright. I'm gonna take the data. I'm gonna store that experiment. I'm gonna take this data, store it, take it, store it, observe. Oh, she can't. She's not a scientist. Okay. Don't forget your EVA report. Store that in there as well. Take another one. Free floating in space. Super fucking dangerous. Gives me all the goosebumps. Run those again. Point this thing at that negative place we're traveling to. Oh, okay. So, because that's got a negative in it and we're so far away, I know that looks nice and all, but that's really dangerous. Because you're coming into the planet at such a steep angle. I want to aim right about that 30,000 kilometers. So, right in here. That's kind of where we're aiming. Alrighty. It doesn't look like we're moving pretty fast right now, but you can definitely see the increase in the meters a second as we are slowly throwing our weight back into the influence of Kerbin. And as you get closer, that planetary body affects you more and more. Your speed increases. And you get dragged into, if you ever look at gravity wells, you can see the kind of the description of what they're talking about here. So we're nearing about 1,000 meters a second. We're gonna time warps times 1,000 until we get fairly close. Times 100. Changes from thousands of millions of miles to this. And that's going to drop us right back into the atmosphere. Traveling 3,200 meters a second. Real fast. Super duper fast. Where's one of those? Oh man. Things are shattering. She's coming in too quick. I'm not going to fib to you at all. The rumbling from that just now literally startled me. That was so good. Haven't had a moment like that in Kerbin in a long time. Or like this. Oh gosh. Oh lord. Valentina, I apologize. Trying to keep that tail end pointed away. Oh man. That was scary. And like I said, coming in like 30,000 or so, it's pretty rough. Negative would have been even worse than this. Luckily we're about to hit that steep air, and that should slow us significantly. Steep air, dense air. That could have been the time warp being an issue as well. No, I won't fib to you. I'm glad I caught some of those experiments. Just took a crew assessment. Trying to figure out what to do with her life. Except pray. Fuck. That was way more intense than I thought it would be. She's still moving so fast. Falling at what is like 4 or 5 times the feeling of normal gravity. Just slamming a joystick. That was insane, guys. That was not being prepared. That was miscalculations. But she made it home. Good job. People are impressed. Whew. What were her victory spoils there? Huh? Quite a bit, I would assume. Yeah, dude. 121 science collected from that. Temperature scans above the mun, high over the mun, flyby by the mun, all of that. High over Kerbin. Recovered $7,694 in parts. And Valentina, you got 4 experience points to be able to level up. I think she's our first star Cosmonaut, along with Jeb. Yeah, she caught up with Jeb real quick. One mission. Orbits around Kerbin, flyby by the Mun. He doesn't even have that. He doesn't. She took lead. All right. So we got some science. So we'll go ahead and kind of look at some of our next options here. Now, I discussed it earlier, and it maybe got mixed up in losing all that other stuff, but not having solar panels is a huge, huge loss. Plus, electronics have these wonderful little guys right here, which are probe cores that can actually help control vehicles without actually spending a Kerbin life, if that's a circumstance. This guy right here is a big crew cabin, and there's a bunch of other stuff that they can pack on it. Flight controls in this SAS module, very important. And these wings, amazing. Heavy rocketry though, that's really good too. Alright, well, I will decide which way we go with this in the future, and we'll call this one for right now. It's been fun.